What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode 104 of Bettin and Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and we have a fun card for you guys tonight as we cover Saturday at Gulfstream Park for their Florida Sire Stakes days with two Florida bred stakes. Should actually be a pretty fun card, and outside of the stakes, it's actually really wide open of a sequence. Thank you guys all joining in. Greatly appreciate it. And like I said, we'll go through our administrative items, and we have two special things to talk to you guys about today. But before, of course, we get into that, please go down below the video player. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Two easiest and best ways to help out our channel, because not only one is it completely free to do, but it lets us know that you guys are enjoying the content and will push out these podcasts into the YouTube algorithm to hopefully bring like-minded horse players like yourself to the HHH Racing Podcast. And of course, for that, we thank you. As you guys know, after this show at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Pacific Horseplayers goes with their fourth episode, as they've been doing it. Noah and Ryan have been doing a great job so far on their new show. Again, after this show airs, it'll be 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Pacific Horseplayers. And of course, tomorrow with Picks and Ponies at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about Keeneland's Pick 5 on Saturday. And not only every single episode of Bettin and Boozin, but every single episode here posted at the HHH Racing Podcast is available in audio form, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor for those, as well as we have a great website where Pete Visco, one of the hosts of Picks and Ponies, posts previous editions of our power picks before we, if you want to look at them before you buy them, or just want to learn more about the podcast, hhhracingpodcast.com is the place to do so. The aforementioned normal power picks that we have going on every single weekend, that you get them as copy every single Saturday for only $4 a weekend, $15.99 a month. And this includes two full tracks of price plays, spot plays, pick five grids, everything you need to be successful on any given Saturday. Here at the HHH Racing Podcast, we got you covered with the power picks. Again, patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. The link is also in the description box as well. I'm going to bring on my co-host. Actually, no, I'll talk about this one. I actually created a new TikTok and Instagram for us to use at Bettin and Boozin Podcast, and both Instagram and TikTok. I'm going to try and experiment with some short form content over there. Short form as in, short previews of races, pick clips from our show, talking about races that are horses that we really like, our best bets and stuff like that for the upcoming weekend. As well as we get into Breeders' Cup stuff, you guys will see a lot of me and maybe a lot of my co-hosts, depending on what we want to end up doing. But, short form previews of these Breeders' Cup races and stuff like that. If you want to see more of that content, follow me and the rest of the boys over on TikTok and Instagram at Bettin and Boozin Podcast. I'll bring on my team right now, or my team. It's one guy today, and it is Mr. South Beach himself, sticking around as we cover Gulfstream. He had to be here. Charlie Freeman. Charlie, what's going on, my man?
Yeah, I was going to say, not much of a team tonight, kind of more of a dynamic duo, but we move. It's all good. Who better for you to have if we're going to cover Gulfstream than, like you said, Mr. South Beach.
Yep, that's right. And Mr. South Beach, and of course, West Coast Bias, that now does his own West Coast Bias show. So it all works out. Charlie, just don't leave me for your own.
Unless we're starting to PETA show at this rate, it's going to be months before that would happen.
There we go. Title it Gulfstream Speedway, and that'll be top marks there. Either way, guys, I wanted to bring Charlie on because we have a very special announcement for you guys as we get closer and closer to the Breeders' Cup World Championships. You guys know you guys have been wanting them for the last 2 years. They've done absolutely phenomenal this year. Breeders' Cup Power Picks, guys, are now available to buy on hhhracingpodcast.com. And I'll show you guys how to do that right now as I'll bring up my screen. As you can just go to hhhracingpodcast.com. This is right where it brings you at the top of the screen when you go to hhhracingpodcast.com. You can click here to subscribe to the Breeders' Cup Power Picks tip sheet, or this Power Picks tip sheet. Drop down, you click drop down, you go to Breeders' Cup Power Picks. That'll take you right to here. Of course, they are here. You want to read about them. You want to read the blurb right there, of course, by Pete and Howard. But what's included with your subscription, guys? Breeders' Cup Power Picks consists of approximately 30 pages of analysis for the Friday and Saturday's Breeders' Cup races, including top 3 picks from all of the co-hosts, best bets, top long shots, ABC grids for each Breeders' Cup race, full analysis and write-ups for every single Breeders' Cup race, price, spot, vertical, horizontal plays for every single Breeders' Cup race. You guys are not going, if you guys are playing the Breeders' Cup, which we all know we all are, this is going to be the absolute best tip sheet in terms of value, bang for your buck. Again, 30 pages that we're giving it to you guys, and it's done exactly how if you subscribe to our Saratoga, Del Mar, or Keeneland Power Picks. It's all done through PayPal or Venmo. You send it directly to Howard, hkravitzhorse@gmail.com for PayPal, at Howard-Kravitz for Venmo, and you will get emailed the Power Picks on both Friday and Saturday. And again, the deadline, when is the deadline to subscribe? It is by 11:59 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesday, October 30th, which is, of course, 2 days before the Breeders' Cup. Thursday, all of us are traveling, so unfortunately, you won't be able to subscribe on Thursday. But again, you have 2 weeks from today to be able to sign up to that Breeders' Cup Power Picks tip sheet. And again, I already just showed the price, so I kind of spoiled myself a little bit. But what's the price of 30 pages? Generally speaking, when you get these tip sheets around this time, $100, $150 for total packages. I've seen some upwards of $250 for Breeders' Cup packages. We are charging $30 if you are a current Power Pick subscriber, which again, only $4 a weekend, $15.99 a month. Also, if you're not a Power Pick subscriber, don't worry. It's only an extra $5. Again, you're basically, if you're already a current Power Pick subscriber, even if you're not, it's basically $1 per page for the Breeders' Cup. And again, every single Breeders' Cup race is going to have a write-up. You're going to have top threes from all of us here on the HHH Racing Podcast. Just the absolute best value when it comes to the Breeders' Cup World Championships. And again, 2 weeks from today by 11:59 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. PayPal or Venmo to Howard, and I'll bring it up a little later in the show if you guys need it again. Of course, this will also be available as a replay, so you can go back and watch it. But again, don't wait. You have 2 weeks, of course, to sign up, but don't wait. Go sign up today. Again, hhhracingpodcast.com will take you right there. Sorry for the long, drawn out intro, but again, we're very excited for our Breeders' Cup Power Picks and the fact that we have so much work and so much love put into these Breeders' Cup Power Picks for you guys. Again, for only $30, it's well worth your money. Real quick, guys, going to, of course, look to the chat, and then we'll go right into the handicapping. Paul Conlon, Paul, I missed you by a week in Keeneland, but left me a very nice gift as a wedding gift. I always joke around with Emma saying, she got a coffee maker for our wedding gifts, and I don't drink coffee, so it's always it's always an Emma gift. But for once, Paul, it's a Kyle gift. So thank you very much, Paul, for the quarter zip. I greatly appreciate it. Terry Frank, of course, is here. Ryan Anderson is here. What's up, Ryan? Thanks so much for joining the show, man. Again, PHP after this. The boss is here. Can you feel it? Breeders' Cup not too far. Absolutely. And like I said, there's a ton of people here. Matt Miller, of course, is here as well. If you guys are watching on YouTube or even on X, go to the right side of the screen and put comments in the live chat, whether you've looked at these races or you just have if you just have some thoughts about what we're looking at. Charlie, I'm going to put you on the spot real quick one time here. I want at least one good story from your Vegas trip.
All right. Well, I mean, I guess, there wasn't much sleeping going on. I think the earliest I went to bed was 3, and we had to be up doing something by like 8 or 9 every single day. I don't know. I guess the best story was going to the nightclub we went to that Offset performed at. That was pretty cool to get to see him.
Wow.
Nice. Get to see him show up. I mean, he was supposed to show up at 1, and he showed up a little before 3. So I guess that part wasn't fun, having to keep waiting it out. But it was kind of one of those things where, you got the drinks going, the boys are buzzing, and at that point, you're kind of like, we might as well wait it out. But super cool experience. And then, crushed it on NFL, crushed it on UFC, actually hit a big parlay. Everything went well except for Ohio State getting cheated, which sucked. But, I'll tell you what, from all the, bad memories I've heard about Vegas from others and all the money people lost, to go up big in Vegas my first time, it's nice to say I'm life positive at Vegas so far.
One, just because I have to get my one shot at you, cheating as in sliding when the game's on the line. Two, also, picks last week for Aqueduct did fantastic. You had Secret Money, who ended
Oh
up
yeah,
winning.
that's it.
And again, thank God that horse is okay. Actually went down after the wire. But after the wire, in terms of betting wise, again, great hit there and all the way through. Patrick and Howard had Gem Mint 10, who finished in the money in that race as well. So fantastic job all
Oh, and the
around.
double of Spaladay into that 6
Yeah,
horse
that
was
was
like 1-5.
fucking Joel Rosario, you dumb. Never mind. All right, that's it.
Help me win.
that's my Joel Rosario rant. But that was so stupid, bro. That was the worst fucking ride ever. But either way, guys, let's get right into, and it starts with probably one of the features on the card. It's the Florida Sire Firm Stakes going 7 furlongs at Gulfstream Park on Saturday, and I'll bring up the Equibase right now for you guys. And of course, since we're doing this on Wednesday, unfortunately, we don't have post positions on the PPs and we don't have morning lines. But in this first race, Charlie, there's a pretty easy morning line favorite on here, the number 2, Rated by Merit, and will be a very heavy morning line favorite at that. Michael Yates and Jesus Rios, not a barn that gets these types of runners, but Rated by Merit looked really good last time. And the thing is that it was against a lot of these same horses. No surprise, Charlie. We're both going the same top. We're both the same horse on top, Rated by Merit. But also we have the same underneath horses, which is interesting because I think there's some players underneath at least in this race. But Rated by Merit in every metric possible looks like the horse to beat.
Yeah, hasn't put a step wrong. He's looked really dominant. On debut, beat Ford Steele, who went off as the favorite or was, I think, one of the favorites, who then came back to actually be a pretty nice horse too, but destroyed that field. Then came back, was bet down heavily, expected to destroy the field again, and did such. And now runs against this exact same quality. I know there's the slight stretch out. But for me, and I get that there's been, some sort of cold pace to some extent with the figures you're seeing, I just don't really see anyone faster, except maybe the 3 just to his outside. But they ran against each other before, and I don't think Rated by Merit needs the lead by any means. The distance doesn't worry me at all. If it was a mile, I would maybe say we need to start talking about it. But if I had to guess, this horse will probably morning line be 4 to 5, and I guess we'll go off at 2 to 5 realistically, maybe 1 to 5. Just really has, in my opinion, for a horse, it's only 2 starts in, looked very disciplined and comfortable. Even if the horse doesn't get the lead like last time, just sit right off and then blow right by.
I think with drawn to the inside, I think that kind of does help Neo Equus a little bit.
Agreed.
Neo Equus, excuse me. But the fact of the matter is this horse is just as fast as Neo Equus. And the fact that this horse is just absolutely powering away at the top of the stretch again, you're looking at Neo Equus here. Then you're looking at the one who's classic, of course, who's going to be third choice in this race, who we both have in there. I don't usually like going with, all the horses that run together. I like to look for fresh faces, Charlie, but in this, there really just isn't anyone else in this race that gets me excited at all. I mean, Ziska even ran in that last race, ran absolutely nowhere near anybody at 79 to 1. Probably just as much of a chance in this race as that last one given. Although in a smaller field. Classic, of course, as I mentioned. Lou is the only other horse I thought was at least interesting underneath, and this one should be a pretty decent price based on the speed figures, but needs a fast pace. Got one last time and closed really, really well, but this is against much, much tougher, at least in my eyes. But Big Paradise is another horse who I think is a little interesting. Again, might just be a cut below a lot of these, but Neo Equus, Charlie, again, and Classic, of course, we have in there. I just like Neo Equus from a fact that I don't think needs to be as fast out of the gate. I think he can rate, which Katie actually has this horse on top, which I thought was interesting. But just in terms of if Rated by Merit goes from the inside, which he has in every single start, I mean, he ran with Neo Equus to a 21-3 opening quarter last time. He's just as fast, and if he gets the lead, it could just be by how much.
Yeah, I just have a feeling that the 2 and 3 are just going to press each other the whole way. And I just think Classic, of course, we saw a little bit of a different side to this horse last time out going a mile. And this was one where I remember we covered that race, and you and I kind of hinted that this was one we thought might want more distance, and 6 was
Mhm.
too short. And I thought visually that was actually, especially because they still, I mean, set a pretty hot pace for a mile.
Yep.
Started slow with that 24 and 6, but then really picked it up in the second and third parts of the race. I just think this is one who took well to more distance. I think 7 furlongs is actually right what Classic, of course, wants. I just think the 2 is ultimately too talented, but I could very well see Classic, of course, just sit off the 2 and 3, let them press each other like hell, and then just kind of finish up second for whichever one gets worn out, which I think personally, and I think you would agree, is more likely to be the 3 than the 2 in terms of who won't have it. Other horses in the race, like you said, I just didn't really like any fresh faces. I thought Lou could have benefited from a potential pace duel. The problem is I've seen this horse time and time again, and this one's just the definition of a money burner. Gets bet down in every race and just doesn't perform. And then finally, just running against state breds at 45,000 got the job done, but that's much weaker than this field. I feel like if there's any meltdown, if anybody will take advantage of it, it's Classic, of course, but I think the 2 is just too tough here.
Yeah, I mean, look, we don't have to keep droning on how much we like the 2. The 2, like you said, it's going to be, it was 2-5 in the last, 1 by 6. Now it's coming back basically in the same exact race. Um, Howard brings up Rated by Merit was considering a Breeders' Cup juvenile bid, which was actually where I expected this horse to run after last time, after just wiping the field in that last time. But this is a better spot, according to Howard. He's really good and should be an open company graded stakes next year, and probably could be pretty competitive if these buyers are any indication. Back to back low 90s. Again, run a 95 here should be not even close compared to the rest of this field again. But again, we've seen stupider things happen. And if Neo Equus goes out with Rated by Merit, again, Classic, of course, or some horse like that, maybe even Lou could pick up a lot of the pieces. I'm going 2, 3, 4. Charlie's going 2, 4, 3. Guys, we'll move right into the next race, being that race was dominated by such a heavy favorite. And this race is the opposite. It's a 1 mile turf maiden special weight, with 12 fielded in here, with 1 also eligible. And the morning line favorite is probably going to be the number 10, Rock Hard Rose. And we'll go to our picks right now. I have the 10 in second. Charlie, you have the 3 on top. We're both going with the firster in this race, which I think is actually really interesting. And I'm sure you're going to share pretty similar thinking of me, but I'm going with the number 4, Brutally Honest, for Mark Cassidy and Edwin Gonzalez. You're going with the number 3, Veronica Z, for Edgar Perez and Coy. Again, Charlie, I think the one thing we need to mention here at this mile configuration at Gulfstream, again, you'll know it better than anybody. It's a pretty short run up to that first turn. And if you're drawn anywhere outside of like 8, it's going to be a pretty tall task to get inside, which for me, if Rock Hard Rose was drawn, at like the 5 or 6, probably be bet a lot heavier and probably be my top choice.
No, I agree. I was literally just about to say, I feel like if you're kind of in like the 8 hole and more inside from there, I'd say you're pretty okay. But I feel like once you get beyond the 8 hole, it gets really tough. Now, obviously, we're very far away from race days, so depending on what scratches there could be, it could make it more live. But I completely agree with you. I was actually considering putting the 12 on top, who looks to be a very well-meant firster for Gustavo Delgado. But that was part of the reason I didn't put the horse on top, is it just scares me to try to go with a firster who has to come from all the way on the
Yeah.
outside. I ended up landing on Veronica Z, who I'm sure you'll get a pretty square price in. The one thing I like about this race is, as you kind of hinted at, it feels like the opposite of the last one where it's wide open, which means you could very well find an interesting price, especially with these firsters, where if you want to play Rated by Merit in the race before, you could take a chance on someone and still find a price. For her, decently well met at 60,000 for a field like this is a very steady work tab. I'll be honest, even though I am Mr. South Beach, I don't really know much about the trainer, but from the small sample size has been decent. 33% you can see with firsters, again, limited, but has
Yep.
done well, pretty solid with routes as well. The other thing I just liked is the breeding for this horse. Obviously we always talk about the war fronts on the turf, Galileo. Whenever you see those Ireland horses in the background, that's something you like as well. So I just think with the work tab and having an Irish breeding going on the turf, I thought this one would be interesting, and I think this trainer will probably let you get a decent price, but has some okay numbers.
Yeah, and this is the other one I kind of looked at. I actually looked at all three. Excuse me, all three of these firsters pretty hard. Madame Clouseau was a horse that was unraced out of Galileo, but has already had one runner and is 3 for 12 lifetime and wins coming on the Woodbine synthetic track actually. So synthetic, translates to turf pretty well, as everyone knows. The family tree, again, healing music, unfortunately, but again, you talk about this Galileo Dam side, always graciousness, ran well and it was a winner on turf, and the factor ran on both synthetic when it was still at Del Mar and Hollywood Park, as well as the dirt as well. And out of Warfront, you assume the turf breeding is there. I went with Brutally Honest. This horse, Romina, the 2, was actually a horse that I was debating on putting on top. I love the breeding of this horse. Justify out of a Lemon Drop Kid mare, which that would be screaming long distance turf every single day of the week. Problem is, Fausto Gutierrez is usually a pretty good trainer, especially down in South Florida. However, you go to first time starters for Fausto, he's 6 for 86 first time out. And when you bring that down to even at Gulfstream, where he runs a lot of his runners, 1 for 42 on the win end and only 6 in the money when he starts horses first time out at Gulfstream Park. So that brought me a little bit away from Romina, at least first time out, maybe one to look for down the line. But I went with Brutally Honest. And this is a horse. I'm not gritty. I mean, I don't even know if you'd even say the Y in that one, but either way, it was a winner on the Woodbine synthetic track as well. Has had one runner, and it's Nothing, who is actually ran in the Bourbonnette, which we talked about on this show, Charlie, earlier in the year. That was that Turfway Jeff Ruby Stakes card, and had run well and is a winner on the synthetic track and is placed on the turf course. So Nothing is definitely a good horse to be in the same family as. An Irish Mission was a very, very nice mare in her own right, actually, for Christophe Clement as well. And with Quality Road on the Sire side, Quality Road wins 13% first time out. A little bit worse on the turf than the dirt, but still wins 13% on the turf. So with the favorites being outside and the post positions definitely hurting, Brutally Honest is one of the firsters I'm looking at. Obviously, Charlie, you like Veronica Z for the same type of thinking of the favorites outside trying to go with a price firster on the inside. However, Rock Hard Rose is a horse that's going to go to the front, going to be fast for Micah Husbands, who is 6 for, who's an apprentice rider who's actually the nephew of the Woodbine legend rider Patrick Husbands. So the fact that he's 6 for 15 and 13 for 62, just starting out his career here in 2024, that shows you just how well, obviously, that family rides. But this is a horse for Safi, Charlie, that goes to the lead. And again, it's going to have a tough time with that post position. But with a lot of horses that are green, in this maiden spot, if Rock Hard Rose does end up clearing all the way from that outside post, this horse is definitely live in this race.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think another thing that's important that you can see is, despite stepping up majorly from the debut, goes from 56 to 1 on debut to less than 5 to 1 at
Yeah.
that Kentucky Down. So clearly people had a lot of expectations. I was just trying to beat a short price. Before I go into my first, or speaking of short prices, another one that I know you and I have in the mix is Le Touche. This one I think is honestly your safest bet to finish in the money in the entire field. Is your not get the job done and win. Another one that's kind of become a money burner, unfortunately, for Antonio Sano, who has been a really, really good trainer at Gulfstream, but has just not had the best start to his meet. And I know he's got to be a little frustrated because this is the time of year where normally he would be one to take over before, a lot of those pletchers start coming back. But this is one who just time and time again, regardless of the surface, kind of works out decent trips for herself, but just cannot get the job done. And I mean, with the figures for those who have run, the horse certainly fits to finish somewhere in the money. But This is one where I'm happy to get beat, and for the short price you're going to get, it's not there. But going to my horse on the outside, Jalila, is that how we're
Jalila.
saying it? All right, gotcha, Jalila. This is one again. I obviously for $275,000, very well meant. I just didn't love the post position. Delgado, he's been pretty decent with his firsters. Bullet work on the Tapeta last time out was a bit interesting as well. That he had the horse work on the Tapeta. Another one that's out of Justify, which as you kind of touched on with the horse you were interested in. These Justifies have just been running really solid, and it doesn't really matter if it's turf or dirt for these horses, which is nice to see. And as one, I like that Miguel Vasquez is aboard as well. I'd be a little more excited if the horse was more towards the inside, but it's still one that I think is intriguing. The only other one that I was a little surprised you didn't have anywhere, I know I did, but I thought you might have, was the other Safi horse, Just Got Lucky. For me, this one, I know it was supposed to be on the turf and it got scratched off. That's the only reason I think the horse is a little interesting is Safi intended the horse to be on turf and the horse took money. My only concern is when I watch the replay, there's just like no early speed in this horse. And I don't know how much of that you can blame on the Tapeta, but is one that I'm guessing with Jaramillo and being a Safi will take money.
I mean, that. And obviously South Florida, Jaramillo even takes a lot of money, but then you put Safi. I mean, that's the reason this horse, Rock Hard Rose, right? From Jose Hernandez at Monmouth, 56-1, then trains to Safi, gets IRAD, and then goes to Kentucky Downs. So definitely the reason that horse took money the second time. And yeah, just got lucky, like you said. First time out, you can kind of maybe excuse that really slow start, but I mean, this horse is going to take money out of Safi. I don't like this. I just don't like this horse, especially if this horse is going to close again. Granted, Safi always takes money, always wins a lot, 36% this meet at Gulfstream Park. So definitely want to maybe keep at least maybe key underneath, but way too devoid of speed in that first one thing. And the fact that actually Chris Couples just brought up what I was going to bring up was the fact that Edgard Zayas or Drayden Van Dyke don't hop up on this horse is honestly a little concerning for me. And the fact, Micah Husbands, obviously, Safi wants to give him a little bit more entries, but the fact that, Zayas goes to Leitouche for Sana, who's won 3%, and Van Dyke goes to The Beach Goes On for D'Angelo. I just thought if you're a big player of jockey gymnastics, this race is definitely interesting to look at. And again, you and I both have firsters on top. This is a mighty big spread race, at least for me, the Big Five. It's
I
pretty.
will say,
go for it.
That one horse, to be fair, the one that Van Dyke's on, who was the trainer for it? I think it was
D'Angelo.
D'Angelo. He has had a really solid meet. He's been the one who's kind of picked up the slack with Fletcher going. So for that one, I kind of get it, but I do agree. Outside of that, though, I don't really understand Zaya not hopping on. That would concern me a little.
Yeah, look, like I said, this race is all over the place. There's a lot of decent firsters in here with some pretty good breeding. So this, especially in a 2-year-old fillies race in this time of year, it's actually really nice to see, especially at Gulfstream Park. I'm going 4-10-8. Charlie's going 3-12-8. Charlie,
now the featured race.
We're back home, baby. We're back home. $10,000 Tapeta, boys and girls. 1 mile and a 16th going on that Tapeta. Again, claiming 10,000, field of 9. The morning line favorite is probably going to be Beach Nut Trophy.
Well, for sure.
And my God, dude, I know you even have this horse on top. This horse has been terrible the last 2 times. Granted, this is, you're going down to, I'll go to this horse first, Charlie. I'll let you talk about this horse. Trained by Safi, this horse was running in optional claimers, was 3rd in the Sanibel Island, winning optional claimers, ran in the Springs behind Caro Consort, then goes to Nolan Ramsey, who's winning. It's a 25% trainer, and now is in a $10,000 claimer. Everyone can make jokes and, everyone knows what everyone's thinking, but that's a crazy drop off for a horse like this.
No, I don't disagree. But the way I see it is just, maybe the horses just needed some time to get acclimated. I'm not saying Beach Nut Trophy is going to all of a sudden, she's going to turn around and become who she once was. But I will point out, the work tab with those last two works since that last effort, have been by far her best works with that minute flat and 48 and 3. So she is working forwardly. The trainer stats have been solid. And, we do sometimes talk about, especially with some of these older horses that are regressing, sometimes they just need, we normally say the second time out is when they take that step forward and get back on track. But we have seen time and time again the third time. And for me, the reality is when you're looking at the others, this field is just so weak that honestly, Beechnut Trophy's last two efforts that have been dreadful, as you pointed out, kind of stack up with this field's average efforts.
Yeah.
So I just feel
Sure.
like if she goes back at all third time out, working forwardly off a slight layoff of a couple months and returns at all to the form that her works are kind of indicating she might be trending to, she should crush this field. I mean, this field is pretty brutal. The bar is very low. It would not surprise me if Beechnut Trophy loses. I just think that she doesn't have to get much better back to what she once was to beat this field. And it's one where it's one of those where I'm happy if I lose with her, so be it. But this field is just so bad that I had to go with the dropper.
Yeah, and that's fair. Look, she's probably much better, or at least definitely once was
Oh,
way,
for sure,
way,
once was.
way above this field. But those last two efforts just do not instill confidence in me. I can't put this horse in there. And again, you might be right. Her C- effort might be good enough in this race. But I'm going with the other horse that you think's interesting, and that is, of course, that's the number 3, Smart Spending for Barbosa, who's winning 6 from 27,
He
but
is
20 for
such a good
27
trainer.
in the money as well. Leonel Reyes picks the mount back up again, who's been on the last 4 times and has only finished out of the money once. This is a horse that really didn't have anything, ran really well in 2023 on the turf at Gulfstream, but never really has shown anything else besides that, at least as of recent. But then 2 of the last 3 efforts, Charlie, have been well within these horses' range. And that last time didn't even really need a pace setup. They went 24 and 3 and 50 flat on Gulfstream Speedway and still almost closed up. I just think this horse is out of this horse or Beechnut Trophy. I think this is a horse I'd much rather have, at least to be able to trust as of recent efforts.
Yeah, that number last time out, especially for me, and one where they didn't give any setup to run on that well, just kind of speaks that this one maybe. I know time form only shows 64 early speed, but to me, kind of shows that this one is more versatile than time form might be indicating. I mean, look, Victor Barbosa is one of my favorite trainers at Gulfstream. I can't emphasize enough if you are someone like me who likes to bet Gulfstream regardless of time of year, even if you're someone who doesn't, be like, you know what, Gulfstream is on and I might as well. Who do I bet on? This is the time of year where you have to rely more on trainers than jockeys, and this is one to always look for. I mean, his numbers consistently are insane, especially in these lower level races. He trains at the better races too, but he just seems to dominate these kinds of races. I had to put this one in second. I just think Smart Spending is a little more versatile than time form might be indicating. Has some races in the past where the horse has been a little more forwardly placed. Has Barbosa, which gets me excited. Leonel Reyes has had a very decent meet. If you look at the numbers for Barbosa though on the synthetic and this kind of layoff on the routes, they're all very solid. I think if Beechnut Trophy really is just finished, this is the one to beat.
Yeah.
I'll briefly touch on actually the horse just above, and then I'll let you touch on your 4, and I'll finish with the 9. The only other one I didn't have in my top 3, and I know you don't have either, that I think is a little interesting is Streaking Gray, and I think we both would agree why. When you get to these really bad weak races, and it's Gulfstream Speedway, and they could set a fraction of 24 and change, and the next thing you know, you see 50 at the half. Streaking Gray would be the one to benefit if they don't go at all. And as dumb as it might sound for Gulfstream Speedway to say, why would they not go? These are older horses for $10,000. You cannot put it past them to end up setting something where it's 24 and 9 and 50 and 1, and you're just watching them painfully walk around. And if that happens, Streaking Gray is going to be the one who takes advantage, or at the very least at a price would finish somewhere in the mix. So that's the one I briefly wanted to touch on.
Yeah,
but I'll let you touch on your 4, and we can finish with the 9.
No, that's fine. Noble Dreamer was actually that horse for me that I had on that exact wavelength. The other thing that I liked about Noble Dreamer, Jaramillo gets back aboard, and out of anyone on the lead at Gulfstream, Jaramillo is probably my number 1 or number 2 rider on the lead. I love when he's able to be aggressive with these horses. And the thing that I like is this horse has ran from sprinting the last 2 times, especially last time when he was allowed to set fractions of that aforementioned basically 25 and 50. He was able to power away from everybody down the stretch. Not sure you're going to get that here. However, he's ran in tough paces. He's been able to hold on a lot more than other horses have been that want to go to the lead in this race. So on your thinking is kind of just where I went with Noble Dreamer. You just ended up thinking about it with a different horse. And again, numbers are slow, but it's not out of the realm of
And
possibility
just
for a
step
horse
it
to
up in
run.
class, believe it or not.
Believe it or yeah, from an 8,000 beaten claimer. You know why? Because he doesn't have the condition anymore. Either way, Charlie, we have the number 9, Crystal Coast, in third for DeBona, who's another really, really nice trainer. Both Barbosa and DeBona are two guys that don't really have the biggest barns and run probably 90% of the runners at Gulfstream Park. But they both have very, very high percentages and are both someone that to look to, especially this time of year at Gulfstream. But Crystal Coast gets Camacho aboard as well, which I think is definitely something. But the 6-year-old mare, just very consistent, maybe not as good as she once was, but still running consistent of numbers to finish in the money.
I think she's the very sneaky one that would be great to use underneath, but also could be the one if you're trying to get a price and want a spread to go for. I don't think Crystal Coast will be a big number, but I would be very confident in saying the 6 will be your heavy favorite and the 3 will be your clear second choice. And then after that, you're probably looking at 4 to 5 to 1 and above on every other horse in this field. I think Crystal Coast, you'll get around 4 or 5 to 1. And when you look at the numbers, this one certainly fits. I mean, I would argue she's the most consistent horse in the field. I mean, every single number is pretty much high 60s, except for that effort 2 back. And for a field like this, being consistently in the high 60s, it might just take a high 60 to win this race. And you'll find that from her. And as you mentioned, she might not be what she once was, but she still has remained in form, hasn't really had one of those major drop-off efforts like we've talked about with Beechnut. I think there's a lot of horses you could kind of spread around. You could either kind of take a stand with Beechnut or pick some of these others. But that'll be a fun $10,000 race to watch.
Oh, it's always, and it's beautiful.
I personally will enjoy it.
I know you will. I'm not worried about that. I'm going 3, 4, 9. Charlie's going 6, 3, 9. Charlie, it's time to go to this co-feature on the card, which is the same race that we talked about in the first race. However, it's for the girls. It's the Florida Sire Susan's Girl Stakes. 7 furlongs for 2-year-old fillies now. Draws a field of 7 with the morning line favorite going to be the number 5, Our Morning Brew for Edgard Zayas and Safi Joseph Jr. Charlie, in my opinion at least, I think Our Morning Brew is a lot better than her male counterpart. Why is his name slipping my mind in the boys version of the race? I think there's a very heavy morning line favorite in that race that should win. At least based on paper, should win for fun, most likely. However, in this race, I'm going with Safi. I know you are as well. Again, kind of chalking out in both of these stakes races. Again, we're trying to intermix prices in these other races to try and make up for it. However, to me, at least, it seems mostly like a 2-horse race, if not a 1-horse race in this one. But we are both going with Our Morning Brew and Win in Your In second for both of us. Charlie, I'll let you talk first. Again, Our Morning Brew, Safi Joseph, and she's been very, very good in both of her starts this year.
Yeah, no, I feel like this is honestly almost like a replication of the boys race in that you kind of have a clear horse who's beat up on these before, and then you have others who have tried to run against the clear favorite and just haven't gotten it done. Our Morning Brew just, hasn't stepped a foot wrong. I just don't really, the main thing for me, because this one, I will say what's slightly different is she has wanted and gotten on the lead in both races, unlike, something Merritt, I'm blanking on the name right now. But the boy that's going to be the heavy favorite in the race before, where we talked about how he can rate rated by Merritt, how he could rate a little. The difference, though, in this one is, as far as I see, there are no closers in this race. I mean, the only one you could try to argue is Kip the Distance, but I think Kip the Distance will more so be coming off the pace because she's not fast enough rather than that she wants to sit. The only one who's really shown any ability to try to sit a little bit is Win in Your In, which is why I do have that one in second, and I'm guessing that's why you do as well. Yeah. The way I see it is I just think the 1 and the 5 are going to go head and head because they're the 2 fastest in this race. You could argue the Ravelli might be one of the fastest as well and probably will be. I think she'll be probably cheap speed. But those 3 will probably fight on the lead. Win in Your In will probably sit right behind them. And then I just think Our Morning Brew goes away, winning away, just like we've seen in the past 2 races. And then I think Win in Your In just takes advantage of those others getting beat up on too much from working too hard and gets up for second. And then, I don't know, Wiggle and Wine was just why I landed on for third.
I mean, you look at this, Charlie, and she went 22-1 and 45 flat. You look at this, you like, there's no way this horse is going to power away and win, right? And then you look here and you're like, oh shit, she might win going away. And I mean, just her power to get away from both these horses. And you said winning your ends right here. Wiggle and Wine is the 6. And there's another horse in this race, but see, she's a little goofy. She's switching leads. She's going in and out. But I mean, she wins by, again, 4 lengths in this race as well, while still being pressed to that 22-1 at 45 flat after going in her maiden race 22-3 and 45-4. So I think she's capable of going fast. She's capable of setting the lead, not sitting off the lead, but she's very capable of getting the lead. I think the 5 post is going to be no hurt to her at all. Again, I think probably the only one she's going to really, really have to fight with that's faster than a lot of horses. Wiggle and Wine's probably going to have to go from the inside, but Rogue Diamond is the horse for the Arlington legend, Larry Ravelli, in this race that I think is going to throw a little bit of a wrench in this race, which is why I have her in third coming out of that win at Hawthorne. However, Charlie, you winning your in again, we mentioned last race. I like that she was able to sit the pocket. However, didn't really have that big punch. She's working really well, which again, she stays in form for a really nice trainer in Carlos David. Same thing with Barbosa, same thing with DeBona. Carlos David gets put into that category for me as well. She's been very, very good. Just maybe ran into a horse that might just be a little bit better than her in Our Morning Brew.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But I think the other thing that I will say is, this horse went off as the favorite against Our Morning Brew, and a heavy one because of those 2 efforts prior that were very solid, and won that stakes race 2 back. So I will say, it's not impossible that winning you're in could turn the tables. I just think it's highly unlikely because, like you said, trying to rate, was able to an extent, but just didn't have the same kick as the favorite that will go off in this race. But yeah, I think this is one that's pretty straightforward to me.
And the other thing is that in the Sharp Susan, Charlie, right? I mean, she sat behind Wiggle and Wine, which is the reason why I don't have that horse anywhere. I just think she's good. I just don't know if she's just as good as winning you're in. But again, she can easily come in third again in this race behind these two horses. But for me, Wiggle and Wine, who you have in third and out of the 1 hole, I almost feel like I don't know if she will, but I feel like her best choice might be able to just go or try to sit, kind of that pocket trip, which again, a lot of these horses are going to be fighting for. However, she has the ability to obviously be on the rail in this race, which obviously helps.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think she has to send, to be honest with you. I just haven't seen enough from her that kind of indicates that she would have that kick. I would argue, if anything, just the benefit is maybe that if she sends at the very least, even if she's not quite the quickest, that she can save ground on the rail. But I think, trying to work out some stalking trip, at least at this stage of her career, is just not really an option yet.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I mean, obviously, look, she rated in her first race, half length, just sitting to the outside. So I just don't think she's up to the rest of them really in this race. Rogue Diamond, again, is that really weird one in this race where ran at Hawthorne. Larry Ravelli loves to run in Illinois. We all know that. Works his horses very, very fast. 46-4 in that last workout at Hawthorne. Ships into here because this horse is Florida bred. Probably wanted to get a little bit better race into her. She's going to absolutely send like a banshee. And again, if Our Morning Brew even has to sit off this horse, I still don't see Our Morning Brew losing in this one. So no matter which way you put it, how many horses go out for the lead from the inside of her, which I think she's faster than everyone, but maybe Rogue Diamond. I just think she probably sits a perfect trip and wins, going away as she has the last 2. I'm going 5-3-2. Charlie going 5-3-1. And before we get into the last race, of course, I want to say thank you, everyone, for watching again, even for just a little bit of a slow week and a Gulfstream card not in their top season. We still have plenty of viewers watching both on X and on YouTube. So thank you all very much. I pointed this out at the beginning of the show, but I want to bring it up one more time. Our Breeders' Cup Power Picks tip sheet is now available on HHH Racing Podcast And I'll bring it up one more time, Charles, so people can see it. Go here, hhhracingpodcast.com. At the top, the blue banner, you click that there, brings you right to our Breeders' Cup Power Picks tip sheet. 30 pages of analysis, approximately, with top 3 picks for every single co-host on the HHH Racing podcast. Best bets, top long shots, ABC grids, full analysis and write-ups for every single Breeders' Cup race, price, spot plays, vertical, horizontal plays for each Breeders' Cup race. You guys are going to want to be a part of this. And again, 30 pages. If you're a current Power Pick subscriber, it only comes out to about $1 a page. Only $30 for 30 pages. $35 if you're not a current Power Picks subscriber over on Patreon. But again, guys, going to be an absolutely fantastic Breeders' Cup season. And if you guys want to cash along with us, go to hhhracingpodcast.com and sign up for those Breeders' Cup Power Picks tip sheet. A lot of work is going to go into those. But last race, Charlie, is race number 12, and I'll show the Equibase right now as I bring it back up on my screen here. Again, it's a field of 12, and it's not an easy one. Maiden claiming 16,000, going a mile and the 16th on the turf. Full field of 12, 2 also eligibles. Bringing up our picks on the screen right now. We're both going with the number 5, Ragtap Girl. Micah Husbands again for Saffy Joseph Jr. I don't know if she'll be the morning line favorite. I think the number 7 might be the morning line favorite. I think the 7, based on numbers, is probably a little bit fast. Isn't she a little bit faster than the number 5, Ragtap Girl? Searchy, yes. She's ran high 60s in this race. That's the only reason I think she might be a little favorite over. But obviously, we know Saffy Joseph takes all the money in these races. That last race, Charlie, I thought was actually visually pretty good. She almost ran down Frothy. Granted, again, a disappointing 2-5 effort, still losing at 2-5 by a nose. However, visually almost caught her down the stretch. Now comes into this race, same exact level, should get a really nice trip.
Yeah, and second time off, a bit of a minor layoff. I thought the efforts have been pretty solid. I know the figures haven't really shown it yet, but I think this is a good chance for her to step forward. That was kind of my reasoning, not just that it's Saffy, but I think the other reason she'll go off as the favorite is, she's 0 for 2, and you kind of look at the 7 and the horse is 0 for 9, and I think that'll be part of it, is the horses have plenty of tries. That's why I ended up tossing the 7, actually, is I think the 7 will go off as the second choice, and I just didn't want to go chalk with a horse who's 0 for 9. But yeah, Ragtap Girl, broke slow and had a lot of ground to make up on debut. Then last time out as the big favorite, just missed by a nose, and now gets a little bit extra distance, gets back to the turf, which is what I think Ragtap Girl honestly would prefer anyway. She's working fine. I just think she's the horse to beat, and if she can work out a nice stalking trip, she'll get it done. I went with My Princess in second. I just think this race is pretty wide open after Ragtap Girl for me. And I know it's kind of hard to know what to do with these international ones, and it's not very often you see one come to Gulfstream and then just be dropped into a race of this quality. But look, the horse lost by a head against this kind of level overseas. Even if you subtract the points or whatever, and you get somewhere in the high 50s, low 60s, it's not great, but that still kind of fits in this field. And again, for me, I was kind of more keen in on just trying to find horses that are less experienced in this race, because a lot of these we've kind of just seen who they are. And then I'll quickly talk on Vino for the Queen and let you talk on yours.
Yep.
Vino for the Queen is one that's actually near and dear for me. I have no idea if Howard will remember this, but it's a horse he actually placed a bet on for me, who was 11-1 in her third start. And I had her in that race, and she missed by half a length. And after that, kind of just paid attention to the horse, but never really bet her since. And I've benefited from not doing so, because she really hasn't run another good race since that one effort that I went with her in. So maybe that was her one chance. Clearly a very pace-dependent horse, because you can see when there aren't those red numbers, she doesn't do running.
Yeah.
I still think is one that can pick up the pieces to finish somewhere, and you'll get a price for sure. My big issue with this one is just so pace-dependent in a race where of this quality, you're probably not getting a crazy pace.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. The reason I don't have My Princess in there, Charlie, is why is this horse at this type of level? If coming over from Europe, was second in the 16,000 claimers, again, definitely not a high level, but it's taken this horse over a year to come back for Heather Smolin, who's only a 7% trainer, comes over days between starts over 180, 0 for 6. And I mean, I think I looked. I don't even think she has ever had a four. Yeah, she's never even had a foreign shipper before. And the fact that this horse is at a 16,000 claiming level makes me just completely off. This horse can win. There's not saying this horse can't. I'm not saying this horse can't win, but just a lot of factors going into it is why I shied away from my Princess. Ragtap Girl, you hit on everything I was going to touch on. I just love the trip. I mean, this horse is going to break from the 5, probably sit 2 wide just behind the leaders. And with everyone else who really hasn't been able to show at this level to be able to pass horses, just think Ragtap Girl is going to completely trip out in this race. Searchy's the only other one that I have in here. And again, I understand why you don't like her. She's kind of showed exactly who she is at this point. Armando de la Cerda takes up the training for this horse again after switching over from Brad Cox early in her career, who ran her at Indiana with his second string, but that was all the way back in 2022. Now hasn't been seen since April 7th of 2024. Give her a little bit of a 4-year-old refresher. De La Cerda has done okay with, I think it's a very small sample size, but he does have a win with over 180 days. This horse is working pretty decently as a minute and 3, 4 of 41 on September 28th, 15 of 35 on the Topa October 5th. And the last one looks like a maintenance work for her. So coming into this race, Searchy definitely has the most experience. Definitely one to at least put in your money in a pretty easy spot in this race. However, again, as Charlie pointed out, going to be one of the favorites. You've seen what she is, 0 for 9 now, going into her 10th start. Maybe just one you want to avoid from a favoritism and betting standpoint, but I think she's definitely at least worth a look in the money. And Charlie Howard does remember that day. So there you go. You doubted the boss's memory and he brings it back to you. I'm going 5-7-6. Charlie, you're going 5-4-6. Again, thank you everyone so much for watching. Greatly appreciate it. Again, a little bit of a slower weekend. The views always just mean a lot. So thank you very much. Charlie, going to your best bets here. You're going race number 10, 2 exactas. You're going race number 10, exacta 6 over 3-9, and race number 12, an exacta 5 over 4-6. Talking about race number 10, that's Beach Nut Trophy on top with your 2 others, and race number 12, the 5 we just talked about in Ragtap Girl. 2 races, Charlie, that are big fields, and you should get at least a decent amount of price by default because, one, there's not going to be too many heavy favorites, and with with a lot of choices underneath, inherently you should get a better price.
Yeah, I'm just price hunting here. The reality is I know in either of the stakes races, I could have just gone with Rated by Merit or the 5 that's the Safi that we were talking about in the girls race. I just didn't want to go with a 2 or 3 to 5 horse in an exact or play one of them in a double. I wanted to be a little more creative, and I also kind of just figured you might use that, so I didn't want us to have the same bets.
Yep.
Yeah, look, Beach Nut Trophy again. I know she's been regressing, but I think for me, again, it's straightforward like we talked about. If she shows any sort of fight that her works are indicating she will, to go back to who she once was, even like you said, a C performance, I think she crushes that field. The 3 is the Barbosa horse that we both have in the mix that is probably the most likely winner outside of Beach Nut Trophy underneath. And then the 9 to the outside. I'm blanking on the name. I know Coast was in the name. Let me go to it real quick. Crystal Coast, that's who it was.
There you go.
Crystal Coast is the other one that has really consistent numbers that you talked about as the older horse that could, finish in there. I'd also even think about Streaking Gray as another one to throw in the mix underneath, but maybe more in the tries. And then going into the last race with the 5, again, the Safi that we've seen, twice now, Ragtap Girl. I think this is, her spot. I think she can really step forward here. And then I think really, as long as you pick anyone besides the 7 underneath, you can get a decent value. My Princess, I agree. There's a ton of red flags, but I think a lot of these have red flags. So maybe, and again, Vino for the Queen, a horse that I, had that bad beat with before, but, hasn't quite gotten back to that form, but has had some okay figures and is a closer. So could very well at least pass, which a lot of these can, and pick up pieces to get somewhere underneath.
I mean, look, brother, I'm Mr. South Beach. I can't be the one sitting here telling you that, I don't like your best bets. But again, you're talking about pricing, right? I did end up using, but I'm going very skinny with these best bets to try and at least up a little bit of my, going, $25 instead of $10 and using two different horses. Like,
Right.
you have an exacta right over two horses. I'm trying to go two ice colds, try and hit these favorites as hard as I can, i.e. Matt Miller. Bring up my best bets, guys. Race number 8, an exacta 2 over 3. That is, of course, but rated by merit, she's got to be the most likely winner on the entire sequence we've just covered. She's head and shoulders above the rest of the field on favorites, has beaten almost every single horse in that race before. Niequist was the other horse, was the Saffy horse that I like second. I had Classic, of course, in second for the entire time. However, that, seeing her race against these same horses, I think that she can set a really nice trip and maybe might get second in that exacta. But Niequist and Rated by Merit have been around the track with each other every single race they've been in. So I just think that's your most likely exacta. And if I get 3-4 to 1 on that, $25, I'll take my $100 and I'll peace out. I'll see you later. In race number 11, I'm going the daily double, the number 5 in the who is Our Morning Brew. We talked about that Saffy horse in race number 12 in that main 16 claimer. I think you either have to take a lot or you really have to take a stand in that race. Charlie and I both have the number 5 Rag Tap Girl on top, and that's who I'm going to look to get a really nice trip and win in the last race. Again, too hard, using two favorites. However, trying to up the amount of my bet and get home in what looks like it could be a little bit of a chalky sequence that we covered today. But the rest of the guys, thank you guys all so much for watching. Greatly appreciate it. Again, a little bit of a slower week here on Bettin and Boozin. However, we appreciate the support. And again, we have TikTok and Instagram now at Bettin and Boozin Podcast. Please go follow us over there, especially for the next 3 weeks. Breeders' Cup and all the content that arrives with that is coming to both TikTok and Instagram. So please go follow us over there at Bettin and Boozin Podcast. And again, Breeders' Cup Power Picks are available, hhhracingpodcast.com. Our good friend Chris Couples, Breeders' Cup Power Picks are paid. Matt Miller says it'll be worth it for the Euro and Japan analysis alone. He says, speaking for myself, I know nothing on these topics, coming from a Breeders' Cup betting challenge champion as well. Howard also said plenty of info coming on Foreign Invaders on our upcoming Breeders' Cup podcast too. So please be on the lookout. Shout out to Caleb from FanDuel TV. Came up to me this past weekend at Keeneland and said, I'm looking forward to that Davy Lane show every single year. And Davy Lane will be back, ladies and gentlemen, for the Euro lookover for the Breeders' Cup here on the HHH Racing Podcast. Again, go to HHH Racing Podcast and pick up your Breeders' Cup Power Picks today. But that'll do it for Charlie and myself for episode 104 of Bettin and Boozin, covering Gulfstream Park, Florida Sire Stakes Day. And until next time, everybody, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.